Hello, can you hear me? I clicked on the wrong button by accident. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I clicked on the wrong button by accident. Zoom somehow started up in the wrong way, and I clicked on the wrong button. Okay. All right. Uh-huh. Zoom's acting funny. Okay. I'm sorry. The Zoom's interface is it's coming up differently than it usually does. I'm not sure what it's doing. Okay. All right. Let me see if we can get going. All right. Okay. So we're going to start a new topic now. Okay, so we're going to start talking about these things called if statements or conditional statements. Okay, so actually, before that, point out that this thing didn't read. There's today's start class. Okay, there's going to be the first test for the class is going to be a week from Thursday. Okay, so that's on February 18th. So it's a week from Thursday. Today's the 9th, and the exam is on the 18th. Okay, so there'll be a class, and it's going to be a take-home test. It won't be during class. It'll be right after class, and you'll have the whole afternoon to take the test. And so the test will be a take-home test on the afternoon of Thursday, February 18th. And there are a bunch of there's a this page here tells you what the exam is over. So the exam is over the sections we've covered so far and what we're going to do this week. This is what we're going to cover this week. So the exam is up to what we finished this week. Okay. So, and this is the sections of the exam is covered. Well, from the two textbooks. These are the sections we covered from the two textbooks. And then here's a list of topics that we've covered so you can see what words we're using. And then the main part of this is a bunch of problems to give you a sense of what kind of exam problems there could be. There's a list here of problems that you should work on to study for the test. The best way to study for the test is just solve these problems. Uh, these problems are meant to be practice problems for the exam. If you have questions about them, you can ask me. I'm not going to put up a solution set for these problems because I want everyone to work on them and I don't want anyone to just try to memorize them. So the exam problems will be problems similar to these. And the best way to study for the exam is for you to solve these problems yourself. But when you're working on them, if you have questions about them, go ahead and ask questions. For example, if you want to know if you've got a problem right, I'll tell you if you have a right or not. If you want to know if your answer to a problem is correct, I'll tell you for sure. But I won't just hand out solutions to these problems. Okay, so work on these problems there's about 20 problems here, and your exam will be about half that many. Your exam will be about 10 problems. So the exam is going to be about 10 problems, very similar to these types of problems. And it'll be during the afternoon. You'll have the whole afternoon to do it. I make it during the afternoon so that make sure people have plenty of time and some flexibility to get it done. Okay. Okay. So that's the most important thing coming up is that there'll be the first midterm exam a week from Thursday. There's some more reading. This is the final reading for the exam. So this is the last material that the exam will be over. Okay, and then here's another way for you to practice learning Java. There's a website called CodingBat, which is a problem website. Okay, if you open, here's an example of a problem on that website. And this kind of way of learning Java is real common. It's become a real standard way to practice Java. In fact, this is a way that a lot of companies do job interviews. They have people solve problems in Java on websites like this as a way of practice of testing people on their knowledge of Java for job interviews. Okay, now the way this works is this is a problem. They describe the problem in words, and then you write the solution to the problem by writing a method. We talked a lot about writing methods. So you're writing a method called missing char, and here's where you'll write your code for it. You should write your method so that it takes an input that's a string and a number. See, and they wrote it already for you. It takes in a string and a number. And what it should return is that string missing that letter. Now remember, letters are numbered in the string starting at 0. So in this string, kitten, K is letter 0, I is letter 1. So you should remove letter 1, the kitten, from kitten and end up with this output. Okay. This one says take the word kitten and remove letter 0, which removes the K. And this says take the word kitten and remove the letter 4, which gives you back this. Okay. So you have to write the code that does that. And use the methods from the string class. We talked about string class, and the string class has methods built into it. Okay. And so in the book, they list some different methods you can use in the string class. So for example, here, if I would use the substring command. Okay. Like here's how it would work. I would return, because you have to return a string. I'm going to return the string they gave me, str. I'm going to return a substring of it that starts a substring that starts at the beginning and goes up to, but doesn't include the letter N, because I want to remove it. And then I want to add on to that str, a substring. Another, I want a substring that's everything before N. This is the way I'm thinking of doing it. I'm supposed to drop the letter, a letter. So I'm going to take everything before that letter and everything after that letter, but not include that letter. So I'll take everything from N plus 1 to the end of the string. Okay. So this is what I think would be the answer. I would return the concatenation of two pieces, a piece that goes from the beginning up to, but not including the letter they want me to drop, and then the substring that starts at the letter after the one they want me to drop and goes all the way to the end. So I think that's maybe the answer. Okay. Then you click the go button, okay, and it runs your program and tests it with a bunch of inputs. Okay, and notice that over here you get, in this case, I succeeded on getting the right answer. Okay, now for example, if I goofed up, I could make my answer wrong by saying +2 there, and then say go. Notice that now I failed on all their input. When they gave my program this input, I was supposed to give them this output, but my program gave them that output. Well, my program gave the output that's in the black, and I should have had the part that's in the red also. Okay, so they showed me what I should have done, what I did do, and then they say that was a failure. Okay, and if I do another different kind of error, like that's also a mistake. Again, they say you when the input was this, you were supposed to have given this output. Instead, you gave that output. Okay, so that was wrong. Okay. And you can keep trying, as you can see that you can keep trying. If you fail, you can keep trying to fix your answer. Until you get it right. Okay. Now, this is what they call a warm-up exercise. And so it actually has a button where you can click where you can ask to see the answer. Okay. 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 And they wrote the answers by defining a string, which is, they called it front, which is exactly the same thing I did here. And they taught another string called back, which was this one here. And then they added front to back. And I just did it more briefly in one line. Okay. So for some of the problems, they actually, you can, like if I take their solution, I can take their solution and put it here in place of mine and press go, and it'll still work. Okay. But now I'm using their solution. Okay. For the warm-up exercises, they actually have a button that says show solution. But that's for the warm-up exercises. Then there's a lot, there's dozens and dozens. There's lots of exercises on this website. It's a good place to practice Java. We're at the beginning of the course, so you can only do, for example, like these warm-up exercises and these string one exercises, all we've learned how to. Today, we're going to start talking about how you would solve these logic problems. That's what we're going to learn about, something called Boolean logic. So we'll start looking at that, okay? But if you click on this, there's a bunch of problems. And if you pick one at random, okay, that would be the problem, okay? So it's a problem involving string. They tell you, given two strings, return their concatenation, except omit the first character from each, okay? So like hello there should give you ELLOHERE, okay? So you're going to return, it's a substring of each one. So you want a substring of this guy that drops the first letter, okay? So that would be, the first one is called A dot substring that drops the first letter. The way you make a substring that drops the first letter is you say start at 1. Take the substring starting at 1. Okay, that goes from 1 to the end of the string. So it drops the first string. And I want to add to that, do the same thing with B. B dot substring, drop the first letter. So take the substring starting at letter 1. That drops letter 0. Okay, let's see if that's the answer. Click go. Okay, now what did I do? I somehow managed to delete the closing brace at the end of the program. So notice that I got a compiling error. I managed to delete that last. It was there at the beginning, but I accidentally deleted it. So they give you an error. They give you, in this case, a compile error. You have to fix the code. Okay, and then I got the right answer. Notice that there's no, this one doesn't have the button for show you the answer. The button for showing you the answer is in the warm-up exercises. Okay, so these are good ways to practice, because if you make a mistake, you can keep trying to solve the problem. They do have a way of giving you hints. Oh, on some of them they have, and some of them they have a button for giving you hints. Let's see. See, here's one that has a button for a hint. If there's a little H after it, that means that there's a hint for that one. So there's a hint for this one here. Okay, so now in the course website, I linked to a couple of these. It's suggestions for you to practice. This one, here's another one I think it would be good for you to try practicing on. Okay, this is another one that has a solution. And then here's another one. Okay, now this one doesn't have the solution. Okay, yeah. So this we're gonna use this as we go along during the semester as practice problems. I'll pick problems from Coding Bat. I'll pick problems from Coding Bat and just say that these are good problems for you to try to work on. Okay, so that's a good way to practice using what we learn in class. Practice using Java. Okay, all right. So, and if you have questions about these, if you try one of these and you have trouble figuring it out, send an email. You can always ask questions about these. These are meant for practice. So they're good things to practice with. So if you have questions about them, please ask. Okay. All right. So what we want to do now is start talking about, well, we're going to chapter 5 and also this section here on Boolean. So we're going to talk about two topics, the conditional statement and what we mean by Boolean expressions. So there's this conditionals and logic. Another word for logic is this, what the other book calls Boolean expressions. Okay, right. So what we want to do is we want programs to be able to make guesses. We want programs to make a choice of do something or do something else. Okay, so the way we do that is I'm going to open a Java visualizer. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use a real important statement in Java. It looks like this. You say if, and then you test something. So you're going to be, what's going to go in here is the logic. okay? And that logic is going to be, so what goes in here is something, you're gonna put in here something that is true or false. And then after that, there's going to be a brace, then the word else, then another pair of braces. Okay. What goes in here is what you want the program to do. What do you do in the true case? So when this thing, so this is something, this is, oops. This is a piece of logic that's going to be either true or false. And something that's true or false is like asking is x equal to number 3? Is asking is x greater than 4? You know, or is the string have more than 5 letters in it? So we'll see. We write things that are true or false. Then it could be true, and if it's true, we do what's in here. Okay, so this is really just, it's not a sentence, it's going to be one piece of Java. It'll be what to do in the case of true, right, like that. And then over here, you'll be what to do in the false case. Okay. Okay, now this will be something that you can test, whether it's true or false. If it turns out to be true, you do what's inside here, and you skip over that part. If this thing turns out to be something that's false, you skip over this and you go to that case. Okay, so let me open another Java visualizer and do one that really works. Okay, so for example, I can say if 5 equals 3 plus 2. This is how I ask if two things are equal to each other. I use two equal signs. So if 5 is equal to 3 plus 2, then here's the part that you do if it's true, else here's the part that you do if it's false. Okay, and I'll just put something real simple in here. System.out.println. Okay, so I'll just print yes. And over here, I'll just print no. Now here, what's not very interesting about this is I know right now whether that's true or false. So usually we'll put things in here that involve variables where we can change the value of the variables so it's not obvious whether it's going to be true or false. But here, this is something that's true. So if I execute this, okay, notice that it jumped to the true part. Okay, so it printed out yes. Okay, on your hand, if I make this is 4 equal to 3 plus 2. Okay, see, it jumped to the else no part, the else part. This was false in here. Okay, now what's a little bit more interesting would be if I did something like int x equal 4. Okay, and then asked is x equal to 3 plus 2. Okay, so my program starts off by deciding is x equal 4. Well, first it sets x equal to 4. Then I go in here and I test this. My program tests that. And right now it's going to look up x is 4. 4 is not 3 plus 2, so this is false. So it's going to jump to line 11. So from line 5, it jumped to line 11. Okay. And if I change this to a 5 here, okay, my program starts out by letting x equal 5. Okay. Then my program checks this Boolean, we call this a Boolean condition. A condition that can turn out to be true or a condition that can turn out to be false. Here we're saying, look up the variable, add those numbers, and ask, are they equal? Okay, in this case, this is false. Okay, I'm sorry, this is true, so we're going to jump to line 7. Okay, now we do line 7, and then we're going to skip over the else part. See, so we went from here to the end of the program. Okay, so that's That's our basic, this is our basic if statement. We call this an if, we call this whole thing here is called an if statement. Okay, you say if something that can be true or false, what to do in the true case, what to do in the false case. Okay, now over here you can do more than just one statement here. Like if I wanted to, I could change what x is. I could change what x is. Okay, and over here I could change what x is. Okay, so I can do two things in either case. Okay, so here x is 5. That was true, so I'm in here. So I print out yes. Then I set x to 0, and then I'm done. Okay, so I can put as much code in here as I want. So I can do multiple things. When the condition is true, there might be several things I want to do in order. And if it's false, there might be several things I want to do in order. So you can put as many things as you want inside of the, you can put as much code as you want inside of the braces. Okay. Like here's another example. So start with a string variable and just, let's see, make it okay. So there's a string variable. Now here's a different thing I can ask. If string dot length, how long is the string? If the string dot length is greater than, say, 5. Okay. Okay. Suppose the string is length greater than 5. Okay. So what I can do? I can do something to the string. I know. So let me create a substring. Then we chop it off to be 5 letters. Okay. Okay. So if it's more than 5 letters long, I'll chop it off to the letters 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which are 5 letters. Okay. So if it's more than 5 characters long, I'll make it 5 characters. Okay. Okay. And then I could do, oh, and then I'll print out the chopped off string. Okay. And then, then I have to make up something to do in the other case. If the string is 5 characters or less, I'll just print it out. Okay. So if the string is more than 5 letters, I chop it off, print out the chopped off one. If it's 5 letters or less, see, the false here would be that that's not true. Okay, when something not greater than 5, when it's 4 or less. Okay, so this would be the case where the string is less than 5 characters long. So then I print the whole string. Okay, then if I visualize this, I've got, there's my variable. Now I test this. I need to compute, I'm asking Java to compute the length of the string and test if it's larger than 5. Now in this case, the string is larger than 5. So I'm down here. So I create this chopped off version and I print the chopped off version. And then I'm done. Okay. If I went back up here and had a different string, okay, and now my string is dogs. Is the length of the string larger than 5? Well, its length is 4. It's got 4 characters in it. So that's going to be false. So I'm down here. So now I just print out that string. Okay, see, so my program can jump around. If statements let you have programs that jump around and do things. Okay, so what's going to be eventually we'll see is how you get interesting things to test. Like right now, I'm just testing things that I know are true or false. Right now, I'm creating tests which are clearly I know whether they're true or false. So there's no The program's really not doing anything interesting here, but eventually we'll see how we can put interesting questions in here. And then depending on the answer to that, I can do one thing or we can do something else. Okay. Now, one of the things we have to learn is what can you put in here? What can you put in here that would be something that is true or false? And eventually we'll learn a lot of things. So we'll start with some simple things, mostly using numbers. Okay, one of the things you know how to check which are things are true or false is to play with numbers. Are two numbers what like what the book calls the relational operators. You can ask if two numbers are equal. You can ask if two numbers are not equal. You can ask if one number is greater than another one, less than one, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. All these are true and false. And we did that over here. Here we used the number here was the length of the string, and we asked if it's greater than the number 5. Okay, and the answer is either yes or no. Though in Java, we don't call them yes or no, we call those true or false. These are what we call Boolean operators. They give you answers that are either the word true or the word false. So they're called Boolean. They're named after a mathematician who lived in the 1800s named George Boole. It's one of the persons who helped sort of create the notion of what we call computer science. He lived before there were computers, but he's the one who created a lot of the ideas that were eventually used in programming languages. So this idea of a now we can create if we want, we can create a variable of this type. This is one of the types for our variables. So over here, I could do the following. I could take this and pull it out of there and say I have a Boolean variable test, which is equal to that. Okay. And then here I say if test. Okay. So what I'm doing is here, I'm just storing the result of that test in a variable. And that variable has type Boolean. And then I just say if the test is true, then do this. If the test is false, do this. Every once in a while we need a Boolean variable. Sometimes they're useful. A lot of times we just put the test like it was before. This was just directly inside here. That's more common to do it. If this is true, do this. If this is false, do this. But we can also take the Boolean expression and use it as a value for a variable, a Boolean variable, and then we can use the Boolean expression in here. Now, actually, the advantage of this is it lets us see what test is. Notice that the visualizer now will show me the value of string, and it'll show me the value of test. It's false. Okay, so that means now this is false, so that means I jump down to line 13. Okay, on your hand, if I go back up here and go back to a longer string, okay, now if I visualize it, okay, now I'm going to test if the string dot length is greater than 5. Okay, and that turned out to be true. Okay, whatever, this thing turned out to be true. Now, if I want it, like, notice I don't see what the answer to this is. If I want, I can create another variable. I can say int count equal string dot length, and then I'm testing is count greater than 5. Okay, I'm taking what was one thing here and breaking it up and saying I want to see what the actual length is, and then I want to see if the result of the test are. And if I want my program to be like this, I can write it so I can see more things happen. Sometimes when you're trying to figure out what's wrong with a program, you take things like, remember what we had originally. We had we had we had we originally had if okay, we originally had if string dot length is greater than 5. Okay. Then I say, well, I want to see more what's happening inside here. So take string.length and put it in a variable so I can see it. Then check if that length is greater than 5 and put the result in a variable so I can see it. Then test for here. So notice that this test is count greater than 5, where count is string.length. So all this is the same as that one line of code. But I might think that this was useful, for especially if I'm trying to find out why my program's not doing what I really wanted to do. It's sometimes maybe useful to break things up into steps instead of having one thing that looks like this. Okay. So this one by itself was the same as these three together. Okay. So, but now when I break it up like that, if I want, I can now, okay, I can see what the count is. The actual string length is 13. I can see what the result of the test is. It's true that count is greater than 5. So now I'm down here, I'm going to go to this step here. Okay. And then if I were to change this to something else, I can see the results still again. Okay. Okay. So the string is dogs. Its length is 4. It's false that the length is greater than 5. So now I'm over here where this is false. So that means I'm going to jump down to line 15. Okay. All right. So the if statement here, here's something that's either true or false. You could type directly some test, or if you want, you could build the test up into steps and then put the result in here. Okay. But you have to finally, in here, you have to put something that's true or false. Okay. Now you can't put you can't test. It doesn't make any sense to test numbers. So, for example, here's something you can't do in some languages you could do this, but in Java it doesn't make any sense. I can't say if true. I'll put just, okay, else. Okay. Java's not going to like this. What's in here is not true or false. What's in here is a number. So Java doesn't let me say if two. See, it's going to complain. The complaint is cannot be converted to a Boolean. Okay. There are languages where, for example, 0 is considered to be false, and anything other than 0 is considered true. There are a number of programming languages that do work that way. So you could just say if 1. If 1 would be the same thing as saying if true. Any number other than 0 is considered true, and the number 0 is considered false. But Java is not one of those languages. Okay. And you can put the word true here. Okay. If true, true is true. So okay, works. Okay. You can put the word false here. That's a value. And I really shouldn't say that's a word, because I'll show you in a second. That's not a word. That's what we call in Java a keyword. See, that was false, so I went to here. Okay. This is not the string false. It's not the word false. This isn't going to work because now I have a string in here. Even though the string holds the letters FASLE, that's not the value false. See, string cannot be converted to a Boolean. Okay. In Java, the letters, see how it turned blue? That's a key, what we call a keyword in the Java language. Okay. So it's not the string quote false. It's the keyword false. Okay, and you can use it when you declare a Boolean variable. Here's a Boolean variable. It can be either true or false, and then I can use the Boolean variable here. Okay. See, B is true. Okay. Now I'll jump to line 7. Okay. I can put, now I can't put here, this Boolean means only true or false. So I can't put the string false in there. Won't compile. I can't put the number 0 there. 0 is not a Boolean in this language. The only thing I can put here is the word true or the word false. Okay, I can only put those those keywords. I can put the keyword true or the keyword false. Those are the only two Boolean values. A variable of type Boolean can hold true or it can hold false. Okay, though we rarely use these words directly in our programs. We actually almost never type these two words because we usually type things like, is the string length greater than 5? Okay, we usually type things like that. We want to know, is the length greater than 5? Okay, we type expressions that turn out to be something that is true or false. We usually don't just use true or false. We do some calculation that computes to either true or false. Okay, so we don't use these two words all that often. Okay, all right. Now, for a long time, the main thing that we'll test are the relationship between two numbers. So for a while, these will be our main Boolean expressions, testing whether two numbers are equal to each other, not equal to each other. Also, you're asking for the relationship between the numbers, so they're called the relational operators. If you think of the numbers on the number line, are these two numbers at the same place on the number line? Are the two numbers at different places on the number line? Is x to the right of y on the number line? Is x to the left of y on the number line? And this is here, could x be, like in these cases, it's strictly, if x is equal to y, x isn't to the right of y on the number line. This says, is x to the right, and can't be equal to it. But then you can combine this one with that one and get, is x greater than or equal to? So you read that, is greater than or equal. You could have one or the other. Okay, and this is x less than or equal to y? So it actually combines equal with less than, and it wants one or the other. And the words or and and are going to become important to us later on. So this or, we're going to actually see that or is part of our logic, and we'll make use of or and quite a bit. Okay, so here x and y could be equal, or x is to the left of y. Okay, all right. Now, and here they explain how. Now you can we just did the if-else statement, but there is something called just an if statement. See this thing here, where you chop off that part there. You can chop off that part there. So we can go over here and we could, like, take this example here. I could do it just a little bit differently. I can chop off that, and I don't have anything to do in the false case. Okay, so I have my string. I count how long it is. I test if the length is greater than 5. If that's true, I chop off the string and print only the first 5 letters. Okay. On the other hand, if this thing is false, I just don't do anything. The program just, in this case, there's nothing else to do after that. Okay. So I can have a program that just Okay, it's going to do the test. In my case, this is false, so I'm going to jump from line 7 to line 12, the end of the program. There wasn't anything after this test. On the other hand, if I make the string longer, okay, if I make the string longer, now this thing will be true, so I'll do what's inside here, and then I'll be done. Okay. Okay. So the count is 13. The test is true. So if the test is true, I go to line 9, chop off the string, and then print it out. Okay. Sometimes you don't need a alternative part. Sometimes you don't need what to do in the else case. Sometimes logic of what we're doing doesn't need what to do when this thing is false. You just say, when this thing is true, I want to do this, and then I don't have anything else to worry about. Okay. More often than not, we have both what we call a then part and an else part. We call this if this is true, then do this. So this part's called the then part. If this is false, you otherwise or else you do this one. So we have a then part and an else part. Okay, you always have the then part. Yeah. So over here, you could have either just the then part, or you could have the then part followed by the else part. Notice that they wrote it a little bit differently here. See how they wrote it like this? I've been writing it like this. Some people like to write it this way. It doesn't really matter how you write it. Some people like to write it that way. Some people like to write write these three things all in one line together. So that kind of scrunches things up. Okay, so they write all those on one line together. Okay, probably there aren't that many people. That style is not that common. You know, that's not a especially common style. This book uses that style of putting the closing brace from here and the word else and the opening brace from here all on one line. Okay. Notice that, and here's another trick to this. The braces don't have to be there. The braces don't have to be there. But that's only if there's only one line here. Okay. If you want there to be two lines, this is wrong. Without the braces, there can't be two lines. Okay, so this is a mistake. What this does is it says if x is positive, it prints this out. And then this guy here, actually, let's put this into our visualizer and see that this is, you have, Java can fool you when you're writing Java code. If you're not careful, you can do things that are hard to read. Okay, so there's their code. Let me indent it right. 1, 2, 3. And I need a variable. I need an x. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to make x4. Okay. So this is going to be true. That means you'll execute line 6. Okay. Well, actually, let me make this -4. This is false. Okay, this is x is -4. This is false. So what do you skip over? You only skip over that one line, and then you print out this. Okay, so this could cause people to be really confused. You wrote it as if this is false, you skip over. You would think both of these, but since you didn't use braces to say lump these two together, what will happen is this will be false. It'll skip over 6 and print 7. Okay, so x is -4. So we're in here. That's going to be false. So we skip to line 7 and we print this. It wasn't what we wanted. Okay. Okay. Indentation is not what Java looks at. If you want to skip both of those lines, you have to say start a brace and then close the brace. Now those two lines have been lumped together. So now you'll skip both of them. See, now we skipped over both of them. Okay. So if you look at the way, there's unfortunately a lot of ways to write this. Okay. You can have the if without the else. Okay. You can have an if without the parentheses. Okay. But without the parentheses is only good if you have only one single line of code. If I go back over here, here's how many different ways you can write this. You can have an if. You can have this, and then immediately say, but that would only be if you have one single line of code. Okay. Another way you can write this is you can write this with the braces. Okay. So this is an if without an else with the braces. This is an if without the else without the braces, but then this can only be one line of code. Okay. Then you could go back up here and you can also have the if and the else, but without the braces. Okay. If you only have one line of code there, you don't need that. You don't need the braces if you have exactly one line of code. Okay. If this is one line, you don't need the braces. If this is one line, you don't need the braces. And then if you want, you can mix them up. You could even do you could not have the braces there. You could have several lines of code in the then part and have one line of code in the else part. Okay, that's allowed. You can kind of mix these up any way you want. Yeah, basically you have if something, then there's what to do, and then the optional else, what to do when something is false. Okay, and then you could you can use this in pieces however many different ways you want. Sometimes you only need the first part. Sometimes you only need the first part. Sometimes you only have one line of code in the first part. So you could have if something, do one thing. Okay? It's considered not great style to write this. Even if there's only one line of code here, it's considered good style to write the braces. So writing the braces, those are the two ways you should do it. Even if you don't have the else, if you have only the if, you should still write the braces. Okay, so these are alternatives. If this is if without the else and without the braces. This is if with the else and without the braces. This is if with the else with some of the braces, but not all of the braces. Okay, so these two are the preferred ways to do it. You should just get in the habit of putting the braces there and not writing it without braces. This can be, the problem with this is it's real easy to make a mistake and then do something like, you think, oh, if this is true, I want to do these two things. And it's real easy to make that mistake and just say, oh, now I want to do those two things. But that won't do those two things. That'll still do only that one thing when it's true, and it'll do this whether it's true or false, because that is not part of the if statement. So if you do that, you'll do, if this is true, do this. If this is false, skip over that, and you're going to always do this one because it's outside of the if statement. Okay, so that's the main reason why we say always use the braces, because when you're doing that, it's real easy to accidentally add something to that and it doesn't work. Same with over here. It's real easy to just add an extra line of code in here. It's really easy to add a line of code in there, and then it's all broke. This won't even compile, because what'll happen here is that'll be part of the if. This will be outside of the if, but that stops the if statement. Then this else is all by itself, and Java complains about an else that's not part of an if, because this thing stops the if. It makes it an if without an else, because this is the then clause. This becomes outside of the if, and now there is no more if statement, so this else is by himself. So this won't even compile. This one won't compile. If you put the extra thing here, this compiles, because that's the if statement, and this is outside of the if statement. Okay. What happens here is that's the if statement. This is outside the if statement, so it ends. The if statement's ended. It's an if statement without an else. This is an else all by itself, and the compiler says you can't do that. You can't have an else by itself. Okay. So for reasons like that, it's considered not a good idea when you don't use it's not a good idea to avoid the braces. You should always put the braces in. Okay. So put the braces. And if you like, you can put the braces. Some people like to put that brace there. Okay. I tend to put it on a line by itself. Over here, like the other book is doing, you can put that on the same line with that. Okay. And then if you want, you can put that there. That's a real, the trouble with it can actually make things kind of hard to read. It compresses things down. That's a very popular way to write it. Okay. Well, actually, probably the most popular way to write it is like this. That's probably the most popular way. So the closing braces are over here. Okay. So opening, closing, then the else on its own line with an opening, and then closing. That's probably the most popular style. Okay. This one is less popular. Okay. And this one's also very popular, like here, the way I do it. I do it with the braces all by themselves. The advantage of this is you can see the braces line up with each other. It makes it easier quite often when you're trying to solve problems to see the braces line up with each other, to see the braces line up with each other. Okay. When you do it like this, notice that that brace, his companion is off diagonally from him. Makes it harder to see him. This guy's brace is right above him. But if you put it like this, his brace is way over here. So this guy's companion brace is way over here. Makes it harder to see where it is. Because we're going to end up doing things much more complicated. And you'll see that sometimes it's a lot easier to see his brace right below his companion brace, to see his brace right below his companion brace. To see this brace diagonally to his companion brace can make things sometimes a little bit harder to read. The advantage of this was that it takes up less lines of space. And this style was originally created when monitors weren't very big. The actual reason for typing it this way is because it used to be that monitors could only show you about 10 lines of code. So you tried to put as many lines of code, use as few lines of code as possible. But it's been many years now that our monitors are huge, and this is not the most readable way to write the code. So people are actually switching to what's considered a more modern style, is that your monitor is big, you're not trying to save space on the monitor, so make your code more readable, like that. Okay, that's actually become the more modern style. We don't care about, nobody has a monitor that only shows 10 lines of code. You know, a modern monitor shows you lots of lines of code, so you can make those lines of code real readable. So this makes it very easy to see what's lumped together, what's lumped together, what's lumped together. Okay. So you have all these choices. The fundamental choice is whether you want an else part or not. Okay. Do you need an if with an else, or do you need an if by itself? In terms of braces, put them in. If you have an if by itself, you should still have the braces. If you have an if with an else, make sure the braces are there. That's the better style. Okay. So don't use braces, but a real important question though is, do you need an else part? Do you want to do something when it's true and something when it's false? Or do you have a situation where when this is true, you have to do something and then there isn't anything to do in the false case? So Java lets you fundamentally choose between this if else statement and this if statement. Okay. All right. Let's see. What else can we need to know? Notice that they say much the same thing. We've just done the basics of this. Okay. Um, this seems easy, and what makes it hard is the next part of it. Okay. What makes it really hard is this thing here, what's called nesting. Okay. So let me show you what I mean here. Okay. So I think they explain this this is a little bit hard to read. So I'm going to show it a different way. Okay. Okay. So start with a if statement. Okay. So there's my if statement. Now I can put anything I want inside here. So let me kind of just delete what's inside there. I can put anything I want what's inside there. Any kind of Java can go here inside the then part, and any kind of Java can go in here. Okay. So what if I put another if statement in there? So I want to test some other thing. Okay. So I could have an if statement inside of my if statement. Okay. I could also put an if statement in here too. I could see, I could have an if statement inside of the then part. I could have an if statement inside of the else part. Or I could have an if else statement in here. Similarly, this one could be an if else statement too. So I can have any kind of combination of this I want. I could have, and I could have another possibility is I could have something like that. So that's an if statement with an if else statement inside of it. Okay. So I can have any combination of these. When you start, this is what we call nesting. This if else statement is inside that if statement. And this is nested inside that one. Okay. Nesting if else statements inside if else statements is a real common thing to do. And it can become, it's real useful, but it can become hard to work with. Okay. It can become stuff that you can get things that are hard to read and hard to understand. Okay. So this is what we're going to start talking about. Now, before doing that, well, let me show you a real simple, a little simple problem. I'm just going to start. I could read a number from a user, but I'm going to just make I'm going to say int x equal, say, 17. Imagine I asked the user for that number, okay? And I want to know if I can do something like this. I can ask the user system.println. I can do a little guessing game with a user. Tell them to pick a number between 1 and 5. Okay. Okay. And I have the number. Okay, that's my number. Let's see. Okay. And then I read a number in from the user. Okay. And I want to know if the user number guessed my number. Okay, so I would say oh, let's see. Oh, let's just do it differently than that. Let's say suppose the user gives us the number 3. Okay. Now here's a bunch of if statements. If the user gave me the number, if the user number is 1, I can say I can just say okay. Okay. If they and then I can do I can do another one of these for every one of their numbers. Like here's an example of something. This is kind of silly code, but I could do something like this. If the number is 2, you entered 2. This could be say you entered 1. Okay. And I can keep doing this. So notice that these are separate if statements. If the number is 1, I print out that. If the number is 2, I print out that. If the number is 3, I print out, okay? And if the number is, so I asked them to do numbers between 1 and 4, 1 and 5, so, okay. Okay, this is example of, you might write something like this. It's not very useful, but notice I'm checking something over and over again. Is the number 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? Okay. Okay. And then if I run this, I print out, I supposedly ask the user for a number, and then I get their number, and it's 3. Okay. Then is it 1? No. See, notice this is false. So I skipped over that to this one. And this one's going to be false. Now this one's going to be true. So I get this printout, but then I check this one also. Now notice that if only one of those can be true. Okay. So this is kind of funny code because I have the number 3. I know it's between 1 and 5, and I check to see if it's this one, this one, this one, but only one of those can be true. Okay. This is something called mutually exclusive conditions. You can't have 2 of those true. You can only have one of them be true. Okay. So what would make more sense is to have we would really like to kind of in a way stop when you get to here. Like we don't know which number the user put in, so we can start with the 1. Check if they have a 1. If they have a 1, fine. Okay. But then if they have a 1, we don't need to check if it's 2. We should somehow stop there. If they did give us a 2, we should stop checking because once we know the number's 2, it can't be any one of 3, 4, and 5. So there's a question of like, how can we write this in a way that works better? Why should the computer have to check all these cases? Okay, that's where this nesting of if-else statements comes in. By playing around with nested if-else statements, we can make this thing work a little bit better. Okay. Now, notice if this is true, I want to print out you entered 1, and I'd like to skip all this else. Well, that means that this is like an else clause here. Okay. Else, see, I would only do all that else if I had the case where this one is false. So now I should indent this. Okay, I'm going to go indent all these because they're inside my else clause. Now I have to close my else clause. Now I've got something a little bit better. if the person gave me the number 1, I print out 1 and I skip the else. I don't check 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But if the number, like in this case, this one's false, so I go into the else case. But now I'm going to check 2, check 3, check 4, check 5. Okay, so I can do the same kind of idea now. If this is true, I want to skip all this. So that means that's in another else clause. So I could do the following. I could say, well, put an else here. Okay, but then I have to indent all these things again, because now they're inside the else. Okay, there's the last one. Put that there. Okay, now, if this is true, I print out that and I'm done. I don't do the else part. But if this is false, I have more things to check. So I check if this one's true. If that one's true, I print out that and I can skip all this other stuff. On the, oh, I forgot one of my, okay. But now I'm still, if this one is false, I'm still going to check this one and this one. Okay. So that means I can keep doing this. If this one's false, I want to skip those two. So that means I need another else clause. See, now this one, did I make sure I got it? No, I have the braces wrong. See, here's where the lining up the braces helps. Okay. I have the, okay. Okay. This one's false. So I'm not here, but now I'm going to check 3, 4, and 5. See, now I check 3, check 4, check 5. So I shouldn't have to keep checking. Okay. Once I know that this one's true, I really shouldn't have to check those. So I can do the same thing again. I can put an else here because if this one's false, I need to go inside. If this one's false, I need to go inside and do some more work. But the things I'm doing, I want to skip them. If this is true, I want to skip those. But if this is false, then I need to do those. And then I need another brace there. Okay. Okay. Now if I test this thing again, notice that I'm getting stuff that's very hard to read. This is not, the idea here is right, but we're going to see that there's a better way to write this. So check if it's 1. Okay, it wasn't 1. So check if it's 2. It wasn't 2. So check if it's 3. It is 3. And now I'm going to skip over the 4 and 5. See, I won't test the 4 and 5, which is better. Okay. And if I made this number here 2, I would stop sooner. Okay. Okay. It's not 1. It is 2, and I'm done. On the other hand, if I make this 4, the way it is right now, it's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 3. It is 4, but I'm still going to check if it's 5 because I need another else thing. See, if this one's true and I want to skip the 5, I need another else. So that means I need one more else here. But then I'm really getting something that's really hard to read. Okay, I've got something that's very hard to read. But now I'm only going to do is, now the computer doesn't do any more than it needs to. Once it's found the number, it skips everything that came after. Once it's found the number, see if it finds that number, skips the else. Okay. So for example, now if I make the number, well, if we check 4, it's not 1, It's not 2, it's not 3, it is 4, and I quit. So I'm only checking the numbers I need to. Okay, now I'm gonna copy this and rewrite it in another way that's going to be important. This is what we'll talk about on Thursday. So watch how I can rewrite that. Okay. I can back this up. It's not going to be, we'll explain this real carefully, but what I can do is I can back that code up. I don't need that brace, and I can put the if there. And what I just did is I eliminated one brace up there, so I can eliminate one brace down here. Okay. Then I can do that again. I can take this one here. Well, I'll just start. I can take this one here, and I can back it up. It doesn't need that brace, and I essentially combine the if with the else. Okay. And then this is the brace I just got rid of. Okay. Then I go here, and I back this one up. And I got rid of that brace there. And then I do that. Every one of these ifs can be combined with an else. We call these else ifs. Okay. And then I start making the indentation. We're going to end up with something that's easy to read after a lot of manipulating around. We're going to end up with something that is easy to read. We started with something that was very messy. Okay. If it's the number 1, do this. Else, if it's the number 2, do this. Else, if it's the number 3, do that. Else, if it's number 4, do that. Else, if it's number 5, do that. And the idea here is that once you've found something that works, you stop. So this is the preferred way to do this. Now, what I'm really doing is I'm doing this. It's just another way to write this. It's a much simpler way to write this that says that I test for this. If it's true, I do that. Otherwise, I have some more things to check. Okay. Then I check for something else that's true. If it's true, I do this and I quit. Otherwise, I have a whole bunch of stuff to check. This is a simpler way to write it. Okay. And it'll go, see, check that, check that, check that, check that. Then when it's found what it wants, it's done. That's this idea of nesting. And here's they show it written this way. Okay. So this is what we're going to talk about for a couple days. This is actually one of the most important ideas in programming. This is something we do a lot. This way of writing tests is a real common way to write tests. Test for one thing. If it's true, do something and you're done. But if it's not true, test for some other condition. If it's true, do something and you're done. If it's not true, test for another condition. And these conditions are and the whole idea is that these conditions are something that only one of them can be true. So we use this when we have a bunch of conditions to test that are mutually exclusive. Only one of them can be true. Okay, so this is what we're going to pick up on class on Thursday, talking about the nesting of if-else statements. Okay, now you have a homework assignment that's due today, I think. Let's see. Yeah, homework assignment's due today. If you have questions about the homework assignment, please, I have office hours this afternoon, or comments, or send an email, and there'll be another homework assignment up there in a few days. Okay, that'll be involving if statements. So we'll have a homework assignment involving using something like, using these if statements somehow. Okay, all right. Anybody have any last second question? Any last second question before we quit? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and stop the sharing, and then we'll end class. And we'll pick up with more about if statements on Thursday. Okay. So see you on Thursday. Bye.
Bye.